I am building the Vermont Farmhouse Junior Dollhouse from start to finish, and today I am going to show you how to put in the baseboards, the doors, wainscoting, and show you how to cut crown molding like a pro, and give you all the tips to help make your dollhouse outshine all the rest. Hello, my crafty dolls, and welcome to my craft room. I am Grandma Kitty, and I am so glad you're here. This is episode 13 of my Vermont Farmhouse Junior Dollhouse build from start to finish, and we are now working on the finishing touches of the dollhouse. And after today, this dollhouse is basically done, all ready to start decorating and playing. And it only took me 5 months, which is a really long time. Now, granted, I've been stopping to film and share these videos, and I really love doing it because I have so many fun techniques to show you. And for example, my last 2 episodes, I showed you a very simple folk art pattern to paint on your outside trim. And then I showed you how to take your flower window boxes and make them interchangeable for the holidays. So that is a really fun hack. Now, if you missed any of those episodes, I have an entire dollhouse building series on this kit. I have a playlist right on my YouTube page. You can start with episode 1, and then you can watch each episode. And if you need to go back and rewatch, the playlist really helps you find those episodes if you need extra help. So make sure you are subscribed. You do not want to miss my next episode. I am going to be building the staircase, and it deserves its own episode. And I am not going to use the staircase that came with the kit. I found a much better one, and I am going to show you a really fun way to paint and decorate the staircase. But today I am going to show you how to install the windows and doors. I am going to cut my own casing frames for the doors that didn't come with trim. And then I'm going to show you the best and easy way to install the baseboards in all of the dollhouse rooms. I'm going to be putting up wainscoting in my laundry room. And I'm also going to be tackling crown molding. Now, cutting the corners of crown molding is a bit of a mind twister, so I broke it down for you into some easy steps. Now, if you want the look of crown molding and still don't want to deal with cutting those corners, I have a hack that is really cool, and I love a good hack. I have a ton of different moldings going into this dollhouse, and 2 of my favorite sites to find building supplies are miniaturecrush.com and justminiaturescale.com, and that is where I bought all of my trim and moldings for the dollhouse. Check it out. Oh, you're going to find a lot of stuff. Now, when it comes to putting up your trim, you really need good tools so you don't get too much of a headache. And you need a square for the window and door frames to keep them nice and straight. There is no way around it. You really need it. And my favorite tool is the miter cutter for cutting all the trim. And the best feature of this tool is that you can cut any angle. And when it comes to building a dollhouse, I always use this. It saves so much time. It's only $35 on Amazon, and honestly, I would pay $150 for it. I cannot craft without it. Now, finally, I am going to use my grandmother Stover's glue to put on the interior trim. Now, since I put up my wallpaper ahead of time, I do not want to ruin it by putting up my trim with tacky glue. Tacky glue will damage my wallpaper. I have come so far, I don't want to make a big mistake and use tacky glue on my wallpaper. You can use it on the outside trim, no problem, but keep it away from the interior. All right, my crafty dolls, I have so much to show you, so let's get started. All right, my crafty dolls, we have so much work to do. I am going to start with the windows. Now, if you have been following along with me during this entire series, you will know that I did not paint or assemble the windows. Each window has 2 frames, one for the outside and one for the inside, and the house has 6 windows, so we need a total of 12 frames. Now, I prefer to paint all of the pieces individually before I glue them together. You get a very nice, even brushstroke. And of course, always before you start painting, you want to sand all of your pieces. The sanding block really works great for smoothing out those really tight grooves. Now, don't give yourself any more work than you need. We have plenty of work to do as it is. So just paint the parts you're going to see, the face, the inside edge, and the outside edge, and always make sure you leave the corners unpainted. And all the pieces get 2 even coats of paint. And after a long day of painting and, of course, watching movies, we can finally put the windows together. To assemble the window frame, all you need are 2 long pieces and then 2 short pieces, and of course your square. And you're going to need a 3-inch rubber band. A band that is too big or too small just won't work. Use a very small amount of tacky glue and apply on all the corners. And I like to use a brush for a really nice, even, thin layer of glue. You really don't need a lot. You really don't want all that glue oozing out and making a big mess. And now just place painter's tape on the painted ends of the long pieces. Now place the painted side down and the outside edge against your square. And put all the pieces together, making sure that all 4 corners are perfectly lined up. And next, you need to take that rubber band and with a little bit of finger gymnastics, stretch that rubber band on all 4 sides of the frame. The tape really helps keep the pieces from flying all over. Now, this is a bit of a struggle. You might need to grab a friend to get that rubber band on. It really is like finger twister, but after a few tries, it'll be a piece of cake. Flip the window frame around and make sure all 4 sides are square. And now you want to remove the tape and then double check that all 4 corners are perfectly aligned. And here is a set of frames for 1 window. Then you just need to let them dry overnight with the rubber bands on. Now the attic window is assembled the exact same way, but with 4 small pieces, and I used a smaller rubber band that came with my Dollhouse kit to secure the window. And here is the set for the attic. And the kit does come with extra pieces, so no, you are not crazy, you did it right. I just want to show you the advantage of painting the pieces before you glue them together. Not only is it faster, you don't need to worry about painting in those tiny corners, you really get a flawless paint job. All right, and now for the fun part, installation day. Now, do not forget to remove all the rubber bands. You're going to wonder why the windows don't fit right. Now, for the outside windows, I am going to use the tacky glue and use a brush to apply a very thin layer of glue. We do not want oozing glue to clean up. That's just extra work. Now, when placing the frame in the window, you want to press the frame down at the bottom corners to really ensure the frame is nice and straight, and then place some painter's tape on the frame to hold it in place while it dries. Now, my crafty dolls, I have been working on this dollhouse for 5 months, and of course it's taken me so long because I have to stop and make these videos for you. But I really feel like putting in the windows is like graduation day. All the time I put in, all the planning and the tedious work has finally paid off. And most importantly, it all worked out and I did it right. Now, it is a really good tip to let the outside window frames dry completely before moving on to the interior window frames. And now after the outside frames are completely dry, we can move on to the inside. Now don't forget to remove the protective film from the window quote glass. Give it a good cleaning, and even in a dollhouse, we have to do some chores and have to wash the windows. Now just pop that window glass right in the window without glue. You really don't want to risk getting glue onto your window. Now I'm going to switch out my tacky glue for the Grandmother Stover's glue. This is the same glue I used for my wallpaper. Now, if I happen to get this glue on my wallpaper, it will not discolor or leave bubbles on my wallpaper like the tacky glue. I worked too hard to ruin it now. Now the glue is very thick, so apply a very thin layer to the frame with a flat stick if you want, and just apply glue to the edge that is going to go against the wall. Again, you don't want any glue near that window glass. Wipe off your window frame of any excess glue. And just pop the frame in. And because we let the outside frame dry completely first, I really don't have to worry about that frame pushing out and moving out of place. You can tape the frames into place if you want, but honestly, the glue is so thick and sticky, they aren't going anywhere. All right, now let's go back outside and put the shutters on. Now, I don't want to make a full commitment with glue, so I'm using my Scotch brand mounting putty. I absolutely love this stuff. I'm going to put a small ball of putty on the top and bottom and secure in place. And the putty will hold forever until I change my mind, which is usually all the time, just in case. Now, if you like my folk art painting that I did on the shutters, check out my video where I teach you this super easy pattern. I have a link right in my description box below. The flower boxes are next, and I'm going to swap in my summer flowers in the boxes. And of course, I'm going to use the putty to hang the flower boxes. Now, the putty is strong enough to hold up the boxes. And if you want to change out the flowers for the different seasons or the holidays, you can easily take off that box and change it. Now, I have a whole video showing you this little hack. The link is in my description box below. Okay, so now let's get the front door ready to install. But I am going to take the door apart by gently pulling the tiny nail out at the bottom and the pin at the top, because I want to stain the interior side of the door. So taking it apart is going to make it a lot easier. Now I want to stain my back screen door also, but the nail at the bottom of the door is not exposed, so I won't be able to take it apart. But I do need to remove this screen very gently so I don't rip it. And because the stain will never cover where that glue was, I need to bring in the big guns and take my Dremel tool and sand off all that glue. It has to be done, and it's going to be worth it. And I even need to get out my micro scraping tools to get all that glue out of those small holes. But I have to do it because this is my inspiration. Painted trim with stained doors on the inside. I love this look. So it just takes a little bit of extra work. And I made sure to stain the thresholds of all the doors so they will blend right into my wood floor. My back screen door looks great, even though the stain is just a little blotchy where that glue was, but I really do like it. And I am going to brush on a little bit of tacky glue and put my screen back on. Now I've got these cute doorknobs for my interior doors and this back door. Now I have a video explaining where I bought all these accessories. The link is down below. Now these doorknobs are meant to be inserted in a tiny hole drilled into the door. Now for me, that is just too much added work. So I am going to cheat and I'm going to cut off that long end of the doorknob. And now to make sure that tiny piece that gets cut off doesn't go flying into the abyss, I'm going to cut it inside a plastic bag. I really do love to cheat. Well, that didn't sound right. I mean, I love a really good hack. And now the doorknob will sit flush with that door plate. Now you can use any glue you like to apply the doorknob and plate on the door. I am going to be using my Beacon 3-in-1 glue just because it dries really fast. And now for the front door, I chose a much more fancy doorknob. And this doorknob and plate are already assembled, so there is no cutting required, which makes it so easy. Now, my crafty dolls, doesn't that look like a very inviting front door? Now let's go back outside and glue that back screen door on with some tacky glue. Apply a very thin layer of glue on with a brush and just pop it into place and secure it with some painter's tape and let it dry completely. Now the front door is glued into place with a very thin layer of tacky glue, and I'm using the tacky glue because the glue is going to be attached to wood, not wallpaper. And again, tape the door into place while it dries completely overnight. My crafty dolls, just look at this over-the-top cutesy dollhouse. I mean, who wouldn't want to live in this fairy tale house? It has all the character that I wish my house had. So I put it all into this dollhouse, but we are not finished yet. Let's go inside and work on the interior trim. Now, before I start any baseboards or crown molding, I need to install the interior trim around the doors. Unfortunately, my back screen door does not come with interior trim, so I'm going to have to cut my own from this door casing that I got from Miniature Crush. Now, the first step is to cut the top right angle, mark where the right angle would be. Just give yourself a little extra length on the left side. Now cut the right end at a 45-degree angle, and using this miter cutter really is a lifesaver. And now to make it easy, put a piece of mounting putty to hold the top of the molding while I measure and mark where the left angle needs to be, making sure it covers up the gaps around the door. Now change the miter cutter to cut this end of the molding to the left at a 45-degree angle. And here is the top casing trim for the back door. Easy peasy. And now to cut the side pieces, make sure your pattern is consistent. My molding has a definite outside edge that is different from the inside edge. Cut the right corner at 45 degrees and don't worry about the length, just make sure it's about an inch longer than the door. And we're just going to do the same thing to the left side. Cut the left corner at a 45-degree angle by changing the direction of the miter cutter. Give those ends a quick sanding, and here is the custom casing for the back door. Now to keep the door casing perfectly straight, I'm going to assemble the casing with my square just like we did with the windows. I'm going to glue the left side together by applying a very thin layer of my tacky glue with a brush. Now attach the top of the casing to the left side, and you want to completely let this side dry before we glue on the right side. And now after that left side is completely dry, flip the square over and glue the right side on. And of course, I have to wait until it is completely dry before moving on. This requires a lot of patience. Now, after the casing is completely dry, I have to measure and cut the right length. Flip the casing upside down so the top of the casing is flush with the floor. Place a scrap piece of your molding where the top would be and mark along the top of that scrap. Then measure and mark the same length on the opposite side, and just use your miter cutter to make a straight cut on both ends. Now I'm going to be switching back to my grandmother Stouffer's glue to put the door casing on. I need to protect my wallpaper I worked so hard on, and look at that, it just fits like a glove. The front door that came with the kit does include interior trim, but after I painted it, I realized it is just plain and boring, and I need to cut new trim. This is not going to work. Now I'm going to use the same casing as the back screen door, but this is going to be a lot easier because I'm going to use the same plain molding as a template. Trace my new pieces and cut them to size. Now this miter cutter really has become my new favorite tool. This would be so much harder with a utility knife. Use a square to assemble the casing, and I am going to use my favorite grandmother Stouffer's glue so I don't damage my wallpaper. Now that molding is a much needed upgrade. Now my door is ready for my first guest. Now before the baseboards, crown molding, and the paneling goes in, I have to put in the interior doors and of course the trim around the doors. Now this Dollhouse kit does not come with room doors. You're going to need to purchase those on your own, Go back and watch my video on all the extra accessories I purchased for this house, especially on these doors. They fit my door openings perfectly, and you really need to be careful when buying doors because they come in all sizes. And the best part, these doors come with both sides of the door trim, so yeah, no more cutting. Well, at least for now. And my crafty dolls, always sand the doors before you paint or stain them. We have come this far. We can't get lazy now. We are almost to the finish line. Now, just take the doors apart by pulling that tiny pin and nail out and make sure you put those in a safe place. Now, referring back to my inspiration, I want my doors to be stained and the trim painted that light pink color, just like my exterior doors. And by the way, this is the same color I used for the exterior color of my dollhouse. And just a little reminder when painting the door frame, make sure you paint the edge on the back where the casing will be glued. You will see that edge. And I made sure to stain the threshold of the door frame so it'll blend in with the floor. My two doors look great after I put them back together. They look just like my inspiration. Now, don't forget to add the doorknobs on both sides before we glue them up. Now, before I glue the doors in, I need to solve a very important problem. How are the doors going to open in the rooms? Now, if the door opens to the right, the door is going to obstruct my playtime, and I cannot have that. But when the door opens to the left, I can continue playing without that silly door in my way. So that is something to think about. Okay, now double checking my door opens to the left, and my crafty dolls, you know the drill. I'm going to use my favorite glue to put the door in and protect my wallpaper. And just tape the door and let that door dry completely. Now, when the door is completely dry, I can then put up the opposite door casing. But no, let's not do it that way. I taught you better than that. You need to use the square for a perfectly straight door casing. And we are pros at this now, crafty dolls. So make sure you use the correct glue for a flawless finish. And here is a clever little tip to keep the doors from sticking. I'm going to use wax medium, and this is the same wax I use to protect my paper floors. Rub a bit along the top and side of the door, and now the door opens as smooth as butter. And now that the doors, windows, and all the casings are complete, I can start adding the finishing trim. And I am going to focus on my laundry/storage room. And here is my inspiration. I am going to have wainscoting 3/4 of the way up from the floor, topped with crown molding that will act as a shelf for all of my miniatures because a storage room needs a lot of clutter. The wainscoting or beadboard that I purchased came from justminiaturescale.com, and I just needed one pack for this room. And it has four 12-inch long pieces, and all I did was cut the boards in half to make 6-inch panels. I gave them all a good sanding, and then I gave them 2 coats of my light pink trim color. A good tip when applying any woodwork to your dollhouse room is to always start with the back wall and then place the side panels on top of the back panel. It's a good trick to hide those corner seams. Now, if you start with the side panel and then put the back on, you are going to see that really ugly gap of the seam. Now just measure and cut all the panel pieces for the room, and just remember when cutting the paneling, use a utility knife and gently pass over the wood several times. Don't try to cut it all in one pass. That blade is going to slip and you are going to cut yourself. And don't forget, you have to sand and sand and sand those edges. Now I'm going back to my tacky glue to put up the paneling. Now I planned this room months ago and I made sure not to wallpaper the entire wall. Now, of course, always start with the back wall and then work your way to the front. And if the panels are not laying flat and misbehaving, tape them to the wall, let it dry completely before moving on. So is this beadboard or wainscoting? I'm not sure. I thought it was beadboard, but I guess it doesn't matter. I absolutely love it. It is the perfect touch for a very busy, hard-working room like the laundry room. And no matter how hard we try, there are always going to be gaps, and I am going to use my lightweight wall spackle, same stuff you use to fill nail holes. Now just make sure that it's paintable and won't shrink or crack. Now just use your finger to push the spackle into those pesky gaps around the doors and the windows. And then take a damp rag and clean up the excess. And don't forget to let everything dry before you touch up with some paint, and you'll never know that those gaps were even there. All right, now my room needs some baseboards along the floor. I bought this thick baseboard at miniaturecrush.com, and there are 6 pieces per pack, about 18 inches long, and you're going to need 3 pieces per room. Now you really want to avoid putting smaller pieces together to make one long piece. That just does not look good. You want one continuous piece per section. And I painted the trim with 2 coats of my light pink color. Now the right way would be to cut the ends on a 45-degree bevel. Now this is a very difficult and precise cut to make, and you'll just have to fill in those gaps anyway with some spackle. So to make it easy, which I love, place the back baseboard in flush with the wall and put the side piece with a straight cut right up against it. Now, of course, I'm going to use my favorite glue to apply all the baseboards. You know me so well by now. And just like that, this dollhouse is starting to look like a real home. Now you can see that there is a gap in the corner, but I am going to hide it with a little dab of that spackle, and without any fancy cutting at all, it looks flawless. Okay, now it's time to put up the crown molding above the paneling. Now, the crown molding I am using is from miniaturecrush.com, and it's really nice and wide to act as a shelf above the paneling. Now, you can see just how much bigger it is compared to this smaller crown molding. Now, I painted 3 pieces of molding the same color as my paneling, and I did have an extra piece just to practice cutting those tricky corners. All right, now cutting the crown molding corners requires diagrams, math, and a very clear head. Now I have a very simple drawing of my room, the back wall, the right wall, and then the left wall. And each corner has the direction the cut needs to be. I have my practice pieces all cut and laid out for the right corner and then for the left corner. Now, the first thing I need to do is lay out all the pieces so I know how to cut each piece. Now, the back wall has the window, so I'm just going to start by cutting the back molding in half. Okay, now I have to label each piece. So first I'm taking the back right corner and I'm going to determine which side goes against the wall and write W, and then mark T for the top and label your W and T's at the end that needs to be cut. Okay, now the back right is all done. Now we need to label the back left the same way. Mark T for the top and W for the wall on the end that needs to be cut. Now go back to the right side wall and mark the T and W on the cut end. And finally, label the left side wall with the T and W. And so far, so good. All right, now let's make the first cut. Now I'm going to start with the back right inside corner. Take the piece for the back wall. Now the 45-degree angle needs to be pointed to the left on the miter cutter. Now the end that needs to be cut with the W in T, the side marked T faces down on the miter cutter, and the side marked W goes against the back. All right, and don't be afraid to double check and triple check and make your cut. I'm going to check my practice piece to see if I did it right, and the angle is perfect, so A+. Okay, so let's complete this inside corner. Take the right wall piece and change the 45-degree angle to point to the right on the miter cutter. Now, I want to point out a problem that will mess you up every time. That is the direction of the molding that needs to be in your cutting miter. Now, here I have the end that needs to be cut, The T side is facing down, but the W side is facing away from me. So to get the correct cut, always remember the T is down and the W is on the wall. So in order to fix this problem, I need to change the orientation of the molding by flipping it and have it pointed to the right. Okay, so now I have the end that needs to be cut. The T side is down and the W is on the back of the miter cutter. Okay, I think it's safe to cut now, so let's see how I did. Let's check my work against my practice piece, and it is perfect. Now let's match it up with the back piece, and look at that. I have my perfect inside corner for the right side. Now before I move on, I'm going to label my two pieces for the right side corner just so they don't get mixed up. Okay, now that we got the hang of this, let's work on the left corner. I'm going to start with the piece for the back wall, and I'm going to change my 45-degree angle to point to the right on my miter cutter. I've got the end that needs to be cut with the T facing down and the W on the back wall of my miter cutter, and my molding, most importantly, is orientated to the right. And I'm going to just make my cut, and I'm going to check my work with my practice piece, and it looks like I'm on a roll. And now to finish the left corner, we're going to take the left sidewall piece, and I'm going to change my 45-degree angle to point to the left. Now the T is down and the W is on the back wall of my miter cutter, and my last cut passes the test, and the left inside corner is all done. And just don't forget to label all of your pieces. All right, my crafty dolls, the hard part is over. We can breathe. Now all I have to do is measure and cut each piece to the correct length. And always remember to make your difficult angled cuts first before cutting the length. The straight cut is definitely the easiest. All right, my crafty dolls, just stay with me. I am almost done. We still need to sand and paint all the ends of our pieces, and I really do feel like I am in the middle of a renovation with all this work. Now you already know that I am going to be using my favorite Grandmother Stover's glue to apply the molding, because I am gluing right on top of my wallpaper, so I do not want to ruin it. That was way too much work. Using tacky glue would ruin that paper. All right, now cutting this crown molding really was a bit of a mind twister, but I really hope I made it easier for you so you'll try it. And because it's worth it, just think of all the miniatures you can stuff onto those shelves in this cute laundry room. Now, the crown molding formula I just taught you can be used for this great shelf effect, but it is exactly the same formula you would use for crown molding along the ceiling of your room. So I hope you try it. It's going to make your room extra special. Now, I just want to quickly mention, if you are planning on crown molding for your ceiling, the most difficult piece to cut is the back wall. Now, ideally, you want a continuous, flawless piece with the angles cut on each end. Now, to avoid frustration, because it's going to happen, cut the back into two long pieces. Now, cut the right corner and then cut the left corner, and then cut them to length and then have them meet in the middle. And now we're just going to hide that gap with our spackle and some paint touch up, and no one will ever know. And this is going to save you a lot of time and, most importantly, a big headache. Now, if you still want the look of crown molding and you say to yourself, there is no way I'm going to attempt at cutting that molding, you are in luck, because there is a hack. These little plastic corner pieces are especially made for crown molding, and I got them on miniaturecrush.com, and they completely replace the need to cut the molding on an angle. And it's just an easy straight cut. And all I did is I painted them the same color as my trim. I was so excited to see these because I have crown molding in every room of my house, and I use these in all the corners. Just makes it so much easier. And all you do is glue them up into the corners of your ceiling and then measure and cut the molding to a length. And it is a very easy, straight cut. No thinking required. Wink, wink. I am going to use my favorite glue to apply the molding to the wall, and the corner pieces really takes away all that complicated measuring, but you still have the beautiful look of crown molding. And now I want to have a very professional finish look, and I need to fill in the gap along the ceiling and in the corners. Now I'm going to take some basic wall spackle, the same stuff you use to fill nail holes in your walls. Find a really good one that doesn't shrink when it dries and that can be painted. Use your finger to press that spackle into the gaps and just use a rag to wipe it clean. And you have to just do the same thing for all the corners. And look at this, my crafty dolls. It is gorgeous. The molding looks amazing with all of the gaps filled in. It really does look professional. Now you can really see the difference in the room where I didn't fill in the gaps. Now it's all this attention to detail that make your dollhouse extra special. Now you don't have to use crown molding for this ceiling trim. You can really use anything. You can use baseboard. You can turn it upside down and install it just like you would around the floor. You can use gingerbread trim, which would look really, really cute. And I think that is exactly what I'm going to choose for my room. That will be my antique store. Now, I stained it mainly because trying to paint it with a detail would be really, really challenging. I really do need to get an airbrush. And this trim is so easy to put up. You just start with that back wall first, and then you put up the sides. And the best part is that it's all straight cuts. Now, I am going to work on the staircase in my next episode, so make sure you are subscribed. So I'm not going to finish the left side of this wall, but what do you think of my antique store so far? Now, the final detail I would like to share with you is how to cover up the edges of the floors and the walls. Now you can use a decorative tape from the scrapbook section of your craft store. The thin tape would look really cute, but the tape that is 3/8 of an inch wide is the exact size to cover up that edge. Now, instead of just putting the tape on, I am going to use my favorite glue to help keep the tape securely in place. That way I won't have to really worry about it peeling off. Now, is this added detail a bit too much, you think? Too cutesy? Absolutely it is, and that is exactly why I'm doing it. The cuter, the better. And not only is it so cute, it really covers up all the gaps and all the imperfections. And now my crafted dolls, that is pretty much a wrap. Now I am going to finish the trim in my episode on decorating the craft room and then a separate episode on decorating the attic. Now, my crafty dolls, make sure you are subscribed because you do not want to miss the fun decorating of this sewing room, the little girl's room, and of course, the laundry room. And the back door is going to lead to the backyard with a garden. And finally, the antique store. And it's going to be so much fun styling and decorating these off the wall rooms. Thank you so much, my crafty dolls, for sticking with me during this very long and technical episode. I hope I helped you with all your trim problems, especially the crown molding. I hope you have the courage to try it now. And if you don't, you can always try the crown molding hack because I love a good hack. Now, my next 2 episodes, I will be assembling the staircase, and then I'm going to show you how to put your house on a turntable so you can flip your dollhouse around and play with it on all sides. So make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss out on my upcoming videos. And my plan for the house when it is complete is to show you how to decorate each room. And I am working on new miniatures to complement my rooms, and you can find them on my Etsy shop. I design and create digital miniatures for the dollhouse. I have so many unique items to choose from. You download the file and then you print it at home and then put it together, and they are so much fun. And if you favor my shop, you will be alerted to my new listings as soon as I post them. So I have a lot of work to do. And I always forget to tell you, you can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Grandma Kitty's Dollhouse. So thank you so much for watching again, and I will see you real soon. Bye.